Hey everyone, it's Richard Metal Fan here, bringing you guys an old school album review. And today we're going to be looking into one of the most landmark albums in the genre known as black metal. And today is the album's 25th anniversary. And what better occasion to celebrate it by reviewing this album? And as you can see below the title, today we're going to be looking into In the Nightside Eclipse by Emperor. And also for the occasion, I'm wearing my Emperor Nightside Eclipse shirt. Now, Emperor, I don't even need to go into an introduction about these guys. Like one of the most influential bands in the whole Norwegian black metal scene in especially like the late 80s, early 90s. And they're pretty much one of my personal all-time favorite black metal albums. And a lot of people will consider this album, In the Nightside Eclipse, Emperor's best album. I'm kind of have to agree. I just think it's they're a great album. It's their debut full-length album, following up to a couple of other older EPs. I believe they had before that. They also had the Wrath of the Tyrant EP, which came out I believe before this. But yeah, just this album is just so good. Every song on here is just like a classic. Production almost kind of has that typical raw black metal sounding. Like it sounds like they recorded in like a freaking hallway of a church before they burned it down. And it's overall, I just think this album is just really good. One of my personal favorite black metal albums. And just like the vocal work from Ishan is just that typical style of black metal, which the high screechy vocals, typical with his guitar playing, as well as other guitar players. Samoth that was on this album, and he just does really well. The bass playing is, you could definitely sort of hear it a little bit from Tick Horder. I can never pronounce his name. And this is the only album that features him on this album, and of course the last album with one of the best black metal drummers ever, Faust, which is just yeah. Now this version, I have the 1999 reissue, I believe. Was this it came out, well, I thought it was a 90, it says it was, when I looked up, this is a 99 reissue on the track listing, but this came out in 2004, so this was around the time they had the 10-year anniversary, they reissued it. But anyway, I'm getting way off track. Let's dive into this album track by track. Now the album starts off with a little bit of an intro, which kind of gives off like a creepy and atmospheric vibe, which goes into the infinity of thoughts, which on this version they sort of lumped, it was just an intro and Into the Infinity of Thoughts together, but they just merge it into one. But anyway, Into the Infinity of Thoughts, which after that brief opener, which sounds like Satan himself rising from the deepest depths of hell, the actual song begins. Being my first Emperor song ever, this brings back sort of like memories whenever I first heard it. It is very chaotic yet wonderfully beautiful. This is actually a commonality amongst all the songs on this album. But black metal is known for its extremity, of course, but the atmosphere is just as important. The guitars on this album is extremely fuzzy and distorted, yet complemented greatly by beautiful keyboards and sort of like the hateful vocals of Ishan. And the vocals here are kept mostly harsh, save for some like clean moments we hear here, which kind of makes it different compared to like all the other black metal albums, which kind of feels like how Emperor has stood out from, in my opinion, from that scene, the whole other bands from that scene. And the vocals here are, but I feel like they sort of like touch more on like the instruments later on this album, as well as the other stuff. Guitar wise, it's not as complex as like Emperor would become on like later albums, such as like Anthem's Walk in the Dusk and stuff like that. And there isn't like much of a progressive nature in the song structures, of course. For sure, like In the Nightside Eclipse is like the blackest Emperor's brand of metal ever was. Instead of like a technical guitar solos, which this album completely sort of lacks on here, but I hear the biggest focus on sort of like the melody on here and simplicity, and of course atmosphere. Make no mistake, however, this is not just simple music. In fact, this is one of the most musically huge albums I've ever heard ever. The Burning Shadows of Silence, which, I mean, it's pretty much good just as like its predecessor, at least sort of like during the beginning. Like the rest of the album, the guitar work comprises primarily simple tremolo picking, which is done very well and tastefully. The keyboards also sort of like darken the atmosphere during the song, though they're more sort of like synth string, and it's not like organ like as they used on like the first track. Cosmic keys to my creations and times should be of some reassurance. The opening riff is the black of the night in musical form. Whenever the moon is full, I make sure to give this song at least one listen, usually several. All the organ synths are just back again, though the guitar takes sort of like center stage here until like the pace slows down, the keyboards are out front again. It's a brilliant track. Beyond the Great Vast Forest begins in very grand style, featuring an intro riff that follows like a rhythmic, reminiscent of sort of like the Iron Maiden gallop. And there's sort of like time changes aren't here. They're brutal with sort of like melodic riffs aplenty, and sort of like the keyboard change from like an organ synth to like synth strings and back at just the right moment. The next song redeems itself in the song title department, which carries sort of like the distinction of being like the first Emperor track I've heard. Following the keyboard intro, the ferocity kicks in, punctuated by Ishan's almost reptilian vocals, and right around the little over 2-minute mark, I absolutely had to get my hands on this album right here. And to this day, I'm not regretful about it in the slightest. In the second half of the song features some pretty crazy riffage. Can't even speak today. I'm sorry, I've just been at work all day. But anyway, moving on to Towards the Pantheon, which begins with a gorgeous clean guitar melody, and like most of the songs, follows sort of like a traditional symphonic black metal formula with huge sounds and grandiose and sort of melody. And I would like to discuss like the next song being The Majesty of the Night Sky, which almost has sort of like a Nordic sound to it, almost that makes me want to don like a Viking helmet and go on an expedition and do like pillaging and massacre after listening to this. Additionally, there's one little section under like the 2 minutes where the guitars almost sound like men groaning, which is weird. And around the 2.5 minute mark, things calm down and the keyboards take over, adding sort of like an ambience to the sound of the howling wind. I Am the Black Wizards, which is actually a re-recording of an older song with this album's production, sounds far better on here. Here, the fuzzy guitars complement with the gorgeous melodies quite well. For instance, like the treble riff during the song's intro and throughout the first verse is like repeated in a slow, almost kind of like doom metal-esque fashion later on. Really, the guitars are pretty much what makes the album sound as cool as it does, but are certainly not the only contributing factor on here. And then the album closes with Inno e Santana, which is actually Italian for Hymn to Satan, which points at the direction the band would take in later works. And this song differs from like the other tracks that and the listener gets to hear like Ishan's clean vocals. And I much prefer his evil shrieks on here, but it does like more to get the out of squared job here. The Iron Maiden influence again rears its head, like the rhythm in like the first 3/4 of the song, and then the tempo gets kicked up to like 5 notches, and the madness finally concludes with Ishan fiendishly whispering the title, which still gives me goosebumps over here. And that's sort of like that ends the main album. And then, of course, this version I have, there's 2 bonus tracks, and they're both cover songs. The first being A Fine Day to Die, which I believe was originally done by Bathory, sort of like the first black metal band, and they do this song all right. And then they covered, I believe, Gypsy by Merciful Fate, which I believe is it's an all right cover, but it doesn't make the album like less good, less bad, or anything. It's just already just so great. Now, overall, in the Nightside Eclipse by Emperor is just one of the most premier albums and most landmark and influential albums in the black metal genre. So if I would give this score, and you probably guessed it, I'd give this album a solid 10 out of 10. And like, I just can't really say it. I know a lot of people think I'm probably biased, and I know a lot of Emperor fans would probably think that they're biased. A lot of people would think that this is their best album. I'm gonna agree. It's a fucking great album. So yeah, that's my view of Emperors in the Nightside Eclipse, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of this album, and I'll see you all in the next video, and keep it metal.